Remember the Calgary Dawgs? You know, I always have to ask the question in my Remember the Calgary series, where we'll take a look at Calgary sports teams from the past. However, what's unique with this team I'm going to talk about in particular is they're not defunct, and they're still still in Calgary, at least in the metro area, as the nickname, the Dogs. Dogs, man. Gives you a clue, as yes, we're talking about the baseball team. Now they're still alive and well. I would say the events that happened in Calgary set up with their success now in Okotoks. And I still felt it was important to put it in this series because they started off in Calgary, are now in Okotoks, the Western Canadian Baseball League collegiate team. So this is episode number 17 in my Remember the Calgary series, and not every team that I talk about in this series are all defunct or dead. In some cases they're still alive elsewhere, but in this case you could say this team still exists and is still sort of in Calgary, but there's a reason why I have a Vipers hat on and a Calgary Flames jersey on, as that these two teams play a role in what the Dawgs franchise is today. And then if you also want to see my previous episode in my Remember the Calgary series, you can see right here with the Calgary Canadians in episode 16, where I talked about a hockey team from the way past. As of this date, they're the only Calgary-based team to win the Memorial Cup. But what inspired me to do the Remember the Calgary series before I get into the episode itself was taking in the Calgary Hitman Curl series, which the arena is now being slated for demolition for the BMO Center expansion. I took that in the 2018-19 season, as well as the local clothing company Zia Dead Clothing that have specialized in Calgary sports teams from the past, some that I have already talked about in this series and some that I still will plan to talk about, as well as the Chris Wilson story. So all those links are in the description below, as well as I still struggle in this particular episode to find any relics or any records, like season by season records. However, we do know when the Dawgs franchise win the championship, both in Calgary and in Okotoks. So let's get on and let's talk about the Calgary Dawgs. Also going to be blending in the Okotoks Dawgs, as I say at the start of the episode. How their franchise started off in Calgary ultimately made them even more successful in Okotoks. And you know, Okotoks is still in Calgary, but you know, maybe if you're younger viewers who are watching this episode or discovered my Remember the Calgary series, that you may not know that the team that you enjoy watching at Seaman Stadium in Okotoks started off in Calgary playing at Foothills Stadium. So in this case we'll say the Okotoks Dawgs. I mean, they retained the same logo and the word mark both in Calgary and in Okotoks, but now it's the Okotoks Dawgs. They're a collegiate summer baseball team based out of Okotoks, Alberta, which is about downtown, 20 kilometers south of Calgary, and they play in the Western Canadian Baseball League, the WCBL, and they are five-time WCBL champions, as they won their first championship in 2004 when they were still in Calgary, and then when they moved to Okotoks in 2007, they won it 3 straight seasons in 2007, 8, and 9 in the newly minted Seaman Stadium. And if you're a Calgary Flames fan, that last name might sound familiar, as there is a Calgary Flames connection to mentioning Seaman Stadium. And then their most recent championship, and actually they are the defending champions, as in 2020 the season did not happen due to the global pandemic of COVID-19. But in 2019, the Okotoks Dawgs won the championship, so that's where they got their 5 from. And then this team formerly was the Calgary Dawgs from 2003 to 2005. And we'll talk about why they did not play in 2006. And, you know, they also played at Foothills Stadium. This was kind of a filler baseball team that came in after the Calgary Cannons, and that will eventually be episode 24 that I'll talk about in my Remember the Calgary Series. And also, if you go all the way back to episode 2, if you remember in 2003, the Calgary Dawgs at the time were playing at the same time as the Calgary Outlaws. Remember the Canadian Baseball League that was very, very short-lived, that folded after the All-Star game. And then in 2005, we had the Calgary Vipers in independent baseball that also shared it, and there was a little conflict that came into play that set up why the 2006 season didn't happen. Also, for records, I mean, I couldn't find much on season-by-season records or any records on players, but this is a collegiate baseball team, which is another avenue for college-age baseball players to, you know, maybe get their way into the major leagues. And there was a couple of Dogs that eventually made it to the major leagues, and, you know, we attract players from all around the world. And I would say, you know, I'll get more in depth on that. This team, when they moved to Okotoks after what happened in Calgary, they've embraced it down in Okotoks, being fairly close to the metropolitan area of Calgary, but still had that small town feeling. That in the 2019 season, the Okotoks Dawgs were 40-15. They were first division. This has been the summer collegiate baseball that the season usually runs from basically after Victoria Day up until just before Labor Day. You know, summer in Canada as well. That's generally when college is out for the summer. So it's a shorter season when you compare it to the major leagues, that it starts either, I mean, depending on how you define it, starts. I mean, you got the Grapefruit and the Cactus League that starts, you know, in March after when the pitchers and catchers report, and then the season starts in April and goes all the way till the end of September, and then have the World Series in October. This is college baseball, where basically starts after Victoria Day, which is the third Monday in May in Canada, and then Labor Day. Well, Canada and US, they have Labor Day the first Monday in September. So that's generally when the season is. The manager right now is Mitch Schmidt. Try to say that 10 times fast. Mitch Schmidt, or let's just say Mitchell Schmidt. That's the manager of the Okotoks Dawgs right now. But I said they did not play in 2020 due to the global pandemic. However, there is hope that they'll return in 2021, the whole league. And actually, Okotoks will be hosting the All-Star game in 2021. So, I mean, brief history is, if you look at the logo, they said that this team actually started in 1996. Even though I mentioned that they didn't start playing at Foothills Stadium in 2003, the Dawgs were originally based in Calgary, hence why I put it in the Remember the Calgary Series, and they were known as the Dogs. The roots of this team dates back to 1996, showing in the team's logo that you see right now, kind of that baseball aesthetic. The Dogs joined they were a formation of an elite travel team, so they weren't officially in any baseball league yet, but in 2003, they joined the WCBL, the Western Canadian Baseball League 2003, playing at Foothills Stadium, which is I got to say that the stadium, Foothills Stadium, I think is almost going to be another relic of sports history, because it's been around since the 1960s. And if you go back to episode 7 in this series, I talked about the Cardinals and Expos, and those teams were affiliated with then the St. Louis Cardinals and the Montreal Expos before the Calgary Cannons came in. I mean, the Seaman Stadium actually, was built, started in 2006 and opened in 2007. It's a nice state-of-the-art baseball stadium for collegiate level that actually is aligned, they say, with AA baseball, when you know the hierarchy, how it works with major leagues, which is kind of the middle team, because you got single A, and then triple A is just before major leagues, and the Calgary Cannons were a triple A team, and I'll obviously get more depth in that in episode 24. And I mentioned 2004, they won the league championship. Lots of 2004 was a very great year for Calgary sports. As you know, in 2004, the Calgary Flames, they finally made the playoffs, and you can say we should have won the Stanley Cup, but made a nice, remarkable run to the Stanley Cup Finals and lost, unfortunately, Game 7 to Tampa Bay Lightning. Well, the Calgary Roughnecks, they won their first NLL title in 2004 as well over the Buffalo Bandits. And then the Calgary Dawgs, they won the first 5 championships in the Western Canadian Baseball League in front of over 3,400 fans. So it's only about half the capacity that you get at Foothills Stadium, because it holds over 6,000 fans. But I think when it comes to baseball in Calgary, I think once we lost the Cannons, that kind of killed some love for baseball in Calgary, in my personal opinion. And then in 2005, the Calgary Vipers, they came in, and then with both the Calgary Vipers and then the Calgary Dawgs, they were sharing the facility. It led to numerous bitter conflicts between the two clubs over the use of the stadium, and ultimately they forced the Calgary Dawgs to suspend operation in 2006. So from starting in 1996, being a youth travel team, to eventually joining the Western Canadian Baseball League in 2003, as at that time they were sharing the stadium with the Calgary Outlaws in the Canadian Baseball League, but there wasn't much of a conflict between then the Outlaws and the Dawgs, because the schedules worked out, and as well, as I mentioned, the Outlaws only played half the season, and they were out. In 2003 was the first year that Calgary was without the Calgary Cannons, because they left in 2002, and then they mentioned they had the whole park to themselves in 2004, and then the Vipers came in the scene in 2005, and I'll talk about the Vipers more in depth in episode 23 if you go back to the introduction. But 2006, they ceased operations. However, I think from the Vipers, the squabble over the use of the stadium, I think the Dawgs got reborn when they moved to Okotoks, because the franchise resumed operations in 2007 in their new home in Okotoks. Well, it says 18 kilometers south of Calgary. I'm going to say, not too sure where you put that 18 kilometers, because for me, being that I've always lived and grown up in the northeast part of Calgary, and now that I live right behind St. Okotoks is still pretty far south. I'm assuming that's from downtown to downtown. But I mean, I know that if I remember, if you're driving out to the south where you see the city limits, yeah, it's still, I think that maybe it's from city limit, but you know what I'm talking about, that Okotoks is south of Calgary. But brothers, Don and Doc Seaman, who are associated with the Calgary Flames ownership group, and I have to say, may he rest in peace, Doc Seaman, as I believe he passed away in 2009, but this is where the Calgary Flames connection kind of comes in, is that they funded the construction of Seaman Stadium at $8 million, and the team have been a huge success in Okotoks, as their average of 1,825 fans per game in 2008. Most of any baseball team in Alberta made them the top drawing collegiate team in Canada. And if I say, I've seen Seaman Stadium actually shortly after when it opened. I was like, man, that's a beautiful stadium for small ballparks, you know, in for the case of college baseball. But now with the fact that they're in Okotoks and had that initial success where they won the next three titles the first 3 years in Okotoks, they averaged almost 2,400 fans per game by 2011. And it mentions team director John Irkanda attributed to the community's enthusiastic support, knowing the games were kind of a place to see your neighbors again. I mean, I guess you can kind of say the best way to describe Okotoks is technically it's a town, although they have enough of a population to grant city status. Because, for example, Chestermere, immediately east of Calgary, has like 1/10 or 1/3 of the population, yet they granted and applied to get city status. But Okotoks kind of feels like that small city, small town vibe. And that's where I felt that, Okotoks embraced this team when it came from Calgary. just how it, ended here in Calgary. And then the fact that you got many teams, or many players, I should say, come from overseas. It's almost similar to like what you have in the U.S., where I understand with collegiate football teams that I've seen videos and many families that you can adopt a player. Have a player live with a family during the season, just to house them while they're here playing baseball. Because you get players that come from overseas that played for the Calgary Dawgs. So I think that's why this team has been more successful. I would say thanks to how things started in Calgary and ended in Calgary, I'm going to say it made this team even stronger. Why I put it in the series. And I said the organization operates such high performance test teams under 18, under 15 levels as well. So since the arrival in Okotoks, the community has seen a significant increase in participation in minor baseball, growing from 150 registered players in 2006 to over, or 150 in 2006 to over 500 in 2011. And then, they've won the championship in 7, 8, 9. One of the former Dog pitcher, Jim Henderson, actually made it to the major leagues, as he's made his debut with the Milwaukee Brewers back in 2012. 9 years later, after he played for the Dogs, and then he went on to be the closer for the Brewers in 2013. So this is one way where a lot of players, eventually can get their foot in their door to the major leagues up in Canada. And then former Dogs catcher Jordan Proskin was drafted by the Boston Red Sox in 2014. He spent much of 2016 through 18 seasons with the single A team, the advanced Seaman Red Sox. So that's some of the history of the Dogs franchise. That it started off in Calgary, and then having a dispute with the Calgary Vipers. And the Calgary Vipers, they ceased operations after 2011. Yet the Okotoks Dawgs, it's different levels of baseball. It's been embraced in Okotoks, and I'm going to say this team has been stronger than ever. So that's just kind of the history of it. I also put all the links to the description below. If you go to dawgsbaseball.ca, DAWGS, that's how they spell it, you can also read more about the history, and you can see, more about their Hall of Fame and, various players that have gotten drafted by a major league team. But those are the two that I mentioned in the history that actually made it to the show itself. So when it comes to the Western Canadian Baseball League, it has been founded in 1931. It started off as exclusively as a Saskatchewan baseball league, because if you look at the history, it started off as because right now it's the Western Canadian Baseball League because of more teams in Western Canada instead of Saskatchewan, and they are based in Lethbridge, Alberta, the headquarters here. But there was many member teams right now, because right now in this league you got the Medicine Hat Mavericks based out of Medicine Hat, Alberta, and then you got the Moose Jaw Miller Express based out of Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Then the Regina Red Sox, who actually that was the team that the Okotoks Dawgs beat for the championship in 2019 in two games in the best of 3 series. Then you got the Swift Current 57s and Swift Current Saskatchewan. Then you got the Weyburn Beavers, who's based out of Weyburn, Saskatchewan. That is the East Division. And then the West Division, you've got the Brooks Bombers, which is in Brooks, Alberta, which is about 2 hours east of Calgary. Then you actually got the Edmonton Prospects, based in Edmonton. They're a traveling team. Then you got the Fort McMurray Giants, based out of Fort McMurray. And then you got the Lethbridge Bulls, based out of Lethbridge. And then the Okotoks Dawgs, which is what this episode I'm talking about. And then you got the Sylvan Lake Gulls, based out of Sylvan Lake, Alberta, which is kind of a play community just west of Red Deer. So those are the member teams right now. But that's the gist of the Western Canadian Baseball League. It actually did start off as the, if you go all the way back to when they were just in Saskatchewan from 1931, all the way till 1974 before they got rebranded. You had the Southern Baseball League. Then you also had the Northern Saskatchewan Baseball League. And then, because there were various leagues at the time, and then you had the Saskatchewan Major Baseball League. It's 2001 they got rebranded as the Western Major Baseball League and then the Western Canadian Baseball League because of teams that encompasses more of just Saskatchewan, but there's teams also going into British Columbia as well, because you got Cranbrook who's looking to join in 2018, or talk about it, but it's been stalled. And they also got Spruce Grove, Alberta, and as mentioned, Silver Lake, who is also looking to get started on the 2021 season as well. So that's kind of the gist of the Western Canadian Baseball League. I mean, it has been known for many different identities over the years. And like I said, Seaman Stadium, it's used primarily for the Okotoks Dawgs. It has a capacity of about 5,200 fans. Keep in mind that they almost sell out, and the community of Okotoks is about just under 30,000 fans. I'm sure you get a lot of fans that come from Calgary. Me personally, I have not actually been to a Dawgs game. I haven't had a vehicle for almost 10 years, and I got no way, a means for me to go down to Okotoks to catch a baseball game and then come back. I mean, it's much further south for me to go to Okotoks where I am, but hopefully I can maybe catch a Dawgs game one of these days. The ball, as I mentioned, it has a infield, a grass berm stretching from the left field line. It has many fan amenities that minor league stadiums have, because seeing pictures of Seaman Stadium is definitely much better than Foothills Stadium when I've caught baseball games in the past. And then also mentioned that the Seaman Brothers, who funded the stadium, and that's where they got their name. But then the whole thing with Okotoks Dawgs is that they also have an academy as well, because you got they're in a field house located off the right field line, and they also have an indoor training facility for the Okotoks Dawgs as well. So that's things that have been expanded on from the stadium, given the success of the Okotoks Dawgs. And if you're looking at records here, I was able to trip on a Western Canadian Baseball League at the plate site. I mean, it's all going to be in the description below. You could say the Okotoks Dawgs, they've had a very strong record for the past decade, I think, because of how the community embraced it with the training program, as well as the top level coaching that you can watch where you can see at the Dawgs Baseball website. But in 2009, I haven't found records all the way back to 2003. Okotoks was first in the division with 31-18 record, and then in 2010 they were first at 34-12. And then in 2011, well, they slipped down to third place, but they were in a tough division. They were 26-19, but they were 4.5 games back from being first in the division. And then in 2012, well, they were 31-13, but they were 7 games out of first place, as they were second in their division. And then in 2013, it was 2013, they were 24-22. Actually, that was 2014, which was probably one of their lower seasons. And then in 2015, they were 29-18, 4.5 games back of first place. And then in 2016, they were 32-14, first in their division. And then in 2017, they were first at 35-13. And then in 2018, they were 38-9, but they did not win the championship. And then they were 40-15 in 2019, which was first place, and they won the championship over the Regina Red Sox. And then also another thing that I found was I tripped on a stadium journey, so talks more in depth about the pros and cons of Seaman Stadium. So even Seaman Stadium found its way on the Stadium Journey website. But that's all I have for the the Dawgs in general, as it started off in Calgary. And as I say, how it started off in Calgary, I would say ultimately led for the franchise to be even stronger than ever in Okotoks after the squabble with the Calgary Vipers at the time on use of the stadium. And then Doc Seaman, their own Doc Seaman, the Seaman Brothers of the Calgary Flames ownership group came in and funded the stadium, and the team got revived, and I would say has been stronger than ever especially with the field house that is on the facility. And indoor training facilities. Very fascinating how Okotoks has really embraced the Dawgs after what happened in Calgary. And then I was able to, after the end of the video, I found some newspaper clippings from when they were in Calgary on those newspaper websites. I have all the links in the description below, as I mentioned, showing a few clippings of what happened during games and winning the championship in 2014 or 2004. Never mind, 2014. It seems like it's almost so long ago, but tells you how much time has passed. But I'm going to say, what do you remember about the Calgary Dawgs, or even what do you like about the Okotoks Dawgs right now? As that's what I have. I couldn't find many other relics on, like, old pictures, other those newspaper clippings, or any past rosters, or any records about who, let's say, who had the most home runs or RBIs or strikeouts. All the vital baseball stats. I mean, not too sure if there's any records anywhere that I can find as of this recording. But to say, what memories do you have, and what's an experience like going to an Okotoks Dawgs game right now? I mean, it looks like one heck of a place to go. Spend the summer weekend or a long weekend if it works out, and all the success that the team has had. The defending champions. We get to host the All-Star game in 2021, assuming if it happens, hopefully. But we're gonna fight this global pandemic with COVID-19. So the next episode, for episode 18, I plan to talk about the Buffaloes and Cowboys, a few more Alberta Junior Hockey League teams. So we were at the rink for the last episode, onto the diamond, and then we're going to go back into the rink, as there's a couple more hockey teams from the past that I'm going to talk about in the next episode, which I might say might be in a few weeks, or as of this recording, I'm about to be going on my winter break here next weekend, so I might be able to batch out a few more episodes. My plan is hopefully I'll have my Remember the Calgary Series hopefully all wrapped up by spring or summer 2021, which being about a year since I started the series. So I'm going to say, as I say, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, home to Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders, and formerly they were home to the Dawgs in the city of Calgary, but they can still say that they still exist and still started in Calgary, in the town of Okotoks, south of Calgary. But that's what I mostly do on my YouTube channel, is talk Calgary sports with the current teams. And this Remember the Calgary Series has been a fun series to look back on Calgary sports teams from the past. And in this case, I'd say it was still important to talk about how the Dawgs started in Calgary and what happened in Calgary. I want to say made the team and franchise much stronger and better than ever embraced in Okotoks, south of Calgary. I also do have personal vlogs attempt to comedy, and my plan is that I would be able to make a few more of those videos during my winter break when I'll have more time to make videos, because I won't be too busy working, because this right now at this stage is still, I'll be still aspiring to grow, but still got other life and responsibilities as well, and then experiences on the road or a sporting event. So as I say, if it all sounds like it'd be interesting to watch, to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, what you need to do, just make sure you like, subscribe. I also have my other social media links down in the description below for other ways you can follow me, and if you get any tidbits or get any updates on my channel. So as I say, let's go Dogs, or go Dogs go, and I'll see you in the next video or next episode, and everything I have been doing as well. If you look in the description in my introduction video, where I outlined my plan for the Remember the Calgary Series, I outlined all the episodes that I was going to talk about, and I have the links to all the past videos as well in the description below, but it's all going to be in my Remember the Calgary playlist. So, I'll see you then.